Do you ever just sit there and think, I'd love to raid, but I can't get a fire team together? That was me yesterday, and it came across me actually, you can matchmake into raids. It comes in the form of guided games, and it's actually still in beta, even in Destiny 2022. So to save you guys the stress, I spent 10 hours in guided games yesterday to complete the Vow of Disciple raid. We're going to break down my experience in this video today, guys, so be sure to stick around and enjoy the video. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to leave a comment and rating down below, and remember to subscribe for more Destiny 2 content. But without further delay, guys, let's jump into this video. Now, I'm very fortunate enough to be part of an amazing clan and have an incredible community. All credit to each and every one of you. So if I ever want to raid personally, I can drop a few DMs and I can get a fire team together quite easily. But the experiences that I have don't match that of a regular Destiny 2 player. So I put myself in the shoes of a Destiny 2 player that can't get fire teams together, doesn't use LFG, or even have access to Discord. You might think I'm putting myself at a major disadvantage, but this is the real experience that a large portion of the Destiny community has. Now, to address some of these issues, Bungie did introduce guided games into Destiny 2. Gives you the option to be a seeker, which is what I was yesterday, or a guide where you can guide people through their first raid experiences. Now, the experience that I had wasn't the one I was expecting to have. My impression of guided games was that I was going to matchmake with 5 other guardians that were already part of a clan, but changes were made to guided games to change the entry requirements to make it more accessible to more players. But it's those changes specifically that make it less likely for you to be successful in your raid run. Now, the changes in particular only require half the fire team to compose of members from the same clan. So if you've got 3 or 4 players in a fire team, then at least 2 of those players need to be from the same clan. So what happened to me as part of guided games is I actually match-made a fire team of 3 after 4 hours queuing to get into the Vow of Disciple raid, with the other 2 positions made up of other solo players too. We were across pretty much every platform you can imagine, including Windows, Steam, PlayStation and Xbox. So with that all being said, you can already start to understand some of the communication difficulties we had just even getting this raid started. Now, I actually made a post over on Twitter saying, here we go, wish me luck, when we started matchmaking, and I was giving hourly updates on my progress and what I was doing while I was waiting to even find a team. This included watching the raid guides from Datto, the raid challenge guide from Fallout Plays, and even watching Leopard Stealth complete 2 of the Vow of Disciple raids while I was still waiting to even complete my first. Now, after some patience and time, we finally were able to matchmake using guided games in the Vow of Disciple raid. Now, the opening encounter was relatively straightforward, as this forms part of the Preservation mission, which is a key mission you complete every week for an easy piece of pinnacle loot. Now, the mission itself is fairly easy to complete solo, so this opening section of the raid required pretty much no communication whatsoever, so much so we were still even able to get the extra raid chest. Now, with the opening section out of the way, we made our way onto the Acquisition encounter, which is the first major encounter inside the raid, and this is when some of the communication issues really started to present themselves. It quickly became apparent that 2 members of the fire team had no mics whatsoever, which made communicating symbols and locations for knights and making any form of call out in this encounter very difficult indeed. After around an hour and juggling all the audio issues, we managed to get voice chat working with the exception of 1 member of the team. Now, if you ever find yourself in guided games, it quickly becomes apparent there are varying levels of raid experience. We have people that have just done boss checkpoints, people that have done multiple Sherpa runs, and people that haven't run raids since the Spire of Stars. They didn't even own Forsaken or Beyond Light and didn't even have access to the middle tree on any of the subclasses available in the game. Now, it's important to remember that all the communication issues that we had, and even what players did or didn't have access to, isn't a reflection of how they are as a player. All the players that we played with as part of these guided games were more than capable to hold their own. It's simply how guided games is constructed and how it pulls people together, that when you combine that with some of these limitations that some players may have due to what they do or don't have access to, goes on to be a major factor if you are or aren't going to be successful. So it's with that in mind, it's quite frustrating to know that players that are time limited and can't spend 10 hours trying to get a Vow of Disciple done may spend most of their time managing these issues, and as a result aren't able to successfully complete encounters and therefore get absolutely no loot whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying players should get loot just for participating, but there needs to be a better way of bringing players together in game that gives them a greater chance of success. Now, the Acquisition encounter was by far the most difficult out of all the encounters in the raid, as it requires communication from all parts of the arena. But after around 2 hours and plenty of trial and error, we were able to successfully get this encounter done. Now, this brought us nicely onto the Caretaker encounter. By using some of the players' previous experience from Leviathan, we were able to easily explain some of the mechanics of this section of the raid. Once everyone fully understood their roles and what they were responsible for, this was one of the quicker encounters in the guided games experience. Now, due to the amount of time it was taking, we had to rotate some members of the fire team out and freshen up the team going into the upended encounter. Now, with this encounter, there are 3 relics, so once again, by using previous raid experience, we were able to explain what these relics do and the roles of those relics throughout this encounter in the raid. For a lot of new players, the first experience of this encounter is organized chaos at best. But once you know the route that you need to take and the roles of each of the relics in the encounter, it really is about moving as a team, sticking to your sides, and getting those symbol callouts nice and early so we can decrypt the code to open each door. Now, as we all know, there are 25 symbols in the Vow of Disciple raid, and not everyone knows the actual names for each symbol. Much like the Last Wish, it is an element of just saying what you see and doing your absolute best to decrypt each and every symbol. With that being said, huge credit to the fire team as they were quickly able to grasp the name of pretty much all of the symbols. Now, as for the relics themselves, we had to be a bit smart with how we used them, holding on to one of the relics at the very end to maximize the timer, to allow the debuff to expire on remaining members of the team, to allow them to pick up the same artifact a second time. It meant we could keep the same people on the relics for longer, maximizing our chances of success and getting past this tricky encounter. But much like the first encounter, after some trial and error, we were able to get the dub and get our hands on some raid loot. And this brought us nicely onto the final encounter, and due to the time it was taking, once again, we had to rotate a member of the fire team out. But with a community member jumping in, and with only 5 members of the fire team still able to actively communicate, we were able to kick off the Rulk encounter. Now, as long as 3 or 4 of you in the team know what you're doing, this encounter overall isn't too difficult. The thing that seemed to pose us the biggest challenge was members of the team surviving from Rulk's ranged beam attack. Now, a big part of this though was down to the communication issues that we had once again, and actively being able to call out where the beam attack was happening during the course of the encounter. Any message that we made had to be relayed, which naturally leaves us at a disadvantage each time Rulk does his ranged attack. Now, once we got past phase 1 and onto phase 2 and initiating Rulk for damage, we once again encountered similar issues. Avoiding his ranged attack proved difficult, and ensuring other players avoided shooting the staff was also a challenge too. But once again, persistence and determination came out on top, and after 10 hours from start to finish from when I started matchmaking, we were finally able to defeat Rulk in the Vow of Disciple. Now, once again, massive shout out to each and every member of the fire team throughout the entire run. They are a credit to themselves and have absolute patience of a saint. But fundamentally, the main issue that we incurred from start to finish was communication and the lack of it, and the varying levels of experience, not just from raid content generally, but what players have access to overall. Now, I guess the question from here is, do I recommend guided games? Well, if you're looking to efficiently run Vow of Disciple, absolutely not. If you're looking to challenge yourself in ways that you thought weren't possible, then possibly. But overall, the guided game system needs a complete rework, and in my opinion, it would be fantastic to see a complete LFG system built into Destiny 2 itself. It would break down the barriers that we have in communication, and clans would really be able to champion their experience and knowledge and be able to guide many more players to success and allow them to engage and enjoy in what is some of Destiny's best content to date. So there we have it, guys, my 10-hour journey through guided games so you didn't have to. If you have any recommendations on improvements for an LFG system inside Destiny 2, be sure to sound off down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out one of the 2 videos you see here in these cards for more Destiny 2 content. And if you want to keep up to date with everything to do with Destiny 2, be sure to hit subscribe as well. I'm going to jump back into the game as always, guys, and I will catch you all again very soon.